Maybe 6 or 7 months ago, I went to this Mexican place with my buddies. We talked, we laughed, we joked, drank margaritas, had massive burritos. It was a great time. But while there, I also ran into some really old buddies from high school. And these are guys who I was super cool with back then, but these days, 7, 8 years later, just we don't talk like we used to. We haven't talked at all, actually. And I decided to stop and chat with them for maybe 5, 10 minutes. We start talking about the basic stuff like relationships, what they're doing for work, where they're living, etc., etc. All the shallow, surface level shit that we talk about with people who we're not really close with, but we want to have a great conversation with them. And we get to the point in the conversation where we're talking about jobs, and all three of them were like, yeah, I can't stand what I do for a living. I hate it. I don't know how I'm going to do this for the next 40, 45 years. And that's when it hit me. More people than not are unfulfilled, dissatisfied, and exhausted with what they're doing every single day. Whether that's for their job or their career or just the repetitive, monotonous nature of life itself. We get caught up in these patterns, these cycles of waking up at the same time, taking the same commute to work, seeing the same people, taking the same way back from work to home, going to the same restaurants, going to the gym at the same time, eating the same meals, watching the same TV shows. And while it's predictable and comfortable in many cases, it's unfulfilling. It sucks the life out of you. And eventually you get to a point, sooner than later, as you could probably tell, or maybe you resonate with, you get to this point where the unfulfillment and dissatisfaction and exhaustion from your life just bogs you down so much. One of my old high school buddies that day at the restaurant, he told me, he said, well, we come here, referencing to the other guys he was sitting with, he said, we come here 2 or 3 days a week because what else is there to do? And that stuck out even more to me. I asked the guys, I said, hey, so if you were all so unfulfilled and dissatisfied and exhausted with your jobs, what are you doing outside of your working hours to change that? Are you guys looking for new career opportunities? Are you learning new skills? Are you trying unique things? They all said, nah, we come here 2, 3 days a week and we drink. Now, I'm all for a fun time. I love a nice whiskey or a margarita, hanging out with friends, whatever. But hearing this sound, but hearing this defeat from these guys that were my age was tough. And it made me realize that we live in a society where it's so much easier to fall into the comfort trap and keep doing these repetitive but destructive things, despite the fact that we might not like our everyday situation. So we watch 5 hours of TV. So we hit the bar 3 days a week. So we stay up late and sleep in late. I'm not here to say one thing is good or bad or tell people how to live their lives. But one thing I do know is that if you're unfulfilled, exhausted, and just dissatisfied with the nature of your repetitive life, then there are some things you can do to change those patterns. There are some things, some behaviors, some actions you can take to shift what it is you're doing every day and shift your perception of life itself. So the question is, what can you do to create this fulfillment outside of work, outside of school, outside of your career, outside of your repetitive cycles of life? How can you break free of this? There are 3 things that I've done that's changed the game for me. All right. So the first thing is create time for nothingness. How does nothingness help? How does doing nothing help? I'm trying to break free from these repetitive cycles. Don't I need to take action? When you set aside time for nothingness, it allows your brain to fully recharge. Now, this is something I'll talk about in more depth in another video, but most of us never really recharge. We never rest because we're always plugged in. And when you're always plugged in, when you're always distracted, when you're always stimulated, as I said, you're never fully recovering. And when you're not fully recovering, you're not thinking straight. And when you're not thinking straight, and you take stupid actions over and over and over again, and don't question whether or not you should be doing them or not. All right? So set aside time for nothing. Start with 4 or 5 minutes. Put your phone in another room, turn off the TV, shut off the music, shut off the podcasts, and just sit on your couch. Stare at the wall and do nothing. Let your brain just think. Don't judge those thoughts. Don't try to shift them in one way or another. Just observe. And you'll be surprised about what comes to mind, because what comes to mind in these periods of nothingness will ultimately give you direction. Number 2 is start waking up earlier than you need to. Let's say, hypothetically, you work 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., as most people do. Let's say you have a 30-minute commute to work, so you must leave your house by 8:25, 8:30 a.m. in order to get there on time. Most people will wake up at 7:50, 8 o'clock, check their phone, scroll through their text messages, scroll through their emails, check social media, run to the shower, take a 2-minute shower, rush through breakfast, take a few sips of a coffee, and head out the door. I don't say this in a judgmental sense, because this was me. This was me for a number of years. And I realized that if I'm not using my time outside of my full-time job effectively, then I cannot create this fulfillment in my life outside of the job. It's as simple as that. Let me tell you this. The morning hours are sacred. The time of this recording, it is 6:23 a.m. I'm in this beautiful park. There is nobody around. On my drive over, I saw nobody. Not a single car was out. Not a single car was driving. I hear the birds, the squirrels. I see bunnies running in front of me. That's it. The sun is shining. Hopefully my skin looks good. And I'm up because this time in the day allows me to think. It creates this clarity. And to me, that is instrumental. I don't know your situation. Maybe you work at 7 a.m., maybe you work at 6 a.m., maybe you work at 10 a.m., whatever. But I strongly recommend getting up at least 1 hour before you need to fully leave the house. I do 2.5 most days. But again, like I said, I don't know your situation. You got to figure this out for yourself. Anyways, that's step number 2. Wake up earlier than you have to. Step number 3, and my favorite, is write. You can write in a journal. You can write long-form essays. You can write short-form posts on social media. You can write email newsletters. You can write video scripts like this. Whatever it is. Writing is articulated thought. Writing is clarified thought. The more you write, the clearer you're thinking. The more you write, the more effectively you can articulate those thoughts. The more you write, the more unique combinations you can make between one idea and another. To me, this is amazing because you don't need to write forever. Meaning you don't need to write 5 hours a day. Even 20, 25 minutes of free journaling and something like this is a game changer. Because you wake up early, as I mentioned in step number 2, you wake up an hour earlier than you need to be. Maybe you had some crazy dreams. Maybe you had some insightful shower thoughts, and you're thinking, okay, I want to get these down on paper. You do it. You start writing. Or maybe you think, okay, well, now that I'm waking up earlier, and now that I'm allowing myself time to sit in nothingness, I've realized that I want to start publishing posts online, or that I want to start putting out email newsletters, or that I want to start recording videos like this, so I need to write. And you do that. There are many opportunities to distract yourself these days. There are many opportunities to indulge in those short-term, pleasurable, dopamine spiking activities. I've done many of them. I admit it, I'm not perfect. I don't sit here on my pedestal saying, hey, you should stop doing that because X, Y, and Z. No. You live your life, you do whatever the hell you want to do. But if you're somebody who is feeling unfulfilled, dissatisfied, exhausted, and you want to make changes in your life but don't exactly know where to start, these 3 steps are super simple. Even if you have a full-time job, even if you're a caregiver, even if you are a parent, whatever the case may be, everybody can squeeze out 45 to 60 minutes each day to create time for nothingness, to wake up a little bit earlier, and to write. It doesn't need to be perfect, and you certainly won't be perfect all the time, but the main thing is just starting. That is exactly what I'm doing with this channel. Just creating. So, hope you enjoyed this, and take care.